Okay, let's move on to third and goal. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I definitely want to touch on them today because through 2 weeks, they look just incredible. Like they look as good as they did in the Super Bowl, if not a little bit better. Connor, your thoughts on the Buccaneers so far, and then we'll get into things.
You nailed it, man. I mean, they look really, really, really good. Tom Brady throws for 5 touchdowns. That defense gets 3 interceptions on Matt Ryan. It's hard to say that they won't show up in the Super Bowl again this year. I can't be like, oh, well, there's a chance. I don't think anyone in the NFC really threatens them all that much. I haven't seen it yet. Yeah, the Packers have a bounce back game against the Lions, but I don't see it. I don't see, the Seahawks being a threat. I don't see, as good as Kyler Murray's been playing, I don't think Arizona threatens them. I think Tampa steamrolls the NFC and winds up in another Super Bowl again. And if that defense keeps playing like they are and Tom Brady keeps being Tom Brady, it might even be not that much of a stretch to say that Tom Brady walks away with another ring. I mean, they look that good. And I know it's week 2, but when you're playing that type of offense, defense, special teams week 2, coming off a Super Bowl win, right? Everyone talks about, the Super Bowl hangover. They don't have one at all. There's nothing to suggest that they're going to slow down at all anytime soon. So it's scary to watch, man. They look that good.
Yeah. My only 2 issues with the Buccaneers really is they're not a great running team, and eventually that becomes an issue. We've talked about that earlier. But as we saw in the playoffs last year, they weren't really a great running team all year, and they turned that up for the playoffs and became at least serviceable at running the ball. And Bruce Arians' offense has never really run the ball a ton anyways. So, I mean, we shouldn't expect, 50 carries for Leonard Fournette through 2 weeks. It's just not going to happen. And the defense, I think, is a real issue. They let up 29 against the Cowboys, and then the Cowboys subsequently went on to only score 20 against the Chargers. Now, the Cowboys, I would know better than anybody else. They're an up and down team. They score 40 1 week, but lose 41-40, and they score 14 the next week and lose 15-14. So that's just how it works. So that could be just a fluke thing. And everybody thinks the Cowboys offense will be good. But then they also let up 21 against the Falcons this past week. And the Falcons, I think we talked about it, looked absolutely just inept after week 1. Like they looked like they couldn't move the ball at all. Matt Ryan looked old, offense looked stagnant, and they go into Tampa and they put up 21 points. It reminds me of the Chiefs from last year, where their offense was so good, like it continued to be good, but their defense really couldn't stop anyone. But no one really thought about that because their offense was so good, as the Kansas City is this year. Same deal. The issue is that Kansas City had their weaknesses exposed at the worst possible time in the Super Bowl. Tampa Bay was able to expose those weaknesses and take advantage of them and end up beating them pretty handedly in the Super Bowl. It could hurt them down the line, the defense. I don't think the running game will be so much of an issue because, like I said, they've shown proof before that they can turn that up at any time. But I think that the defense is a real problem for them and something that they're going to need to clamp down on in order to repeat as Super Bowl champions, which they have a real chance of doing. They do have a real chance of repeating anytime you have Tom Brady on your team, who, I mean, looks as good as he's ever been. Like, this is just, it's crazy at this point. It just doesn't make any sense. His throws still have zip on them. They still have speed. He's still accurate, can still throw it down the field. It's just, I really don't understand it at this point. He just doesn't age, or he ages in reverse. He really looks right now as good, if not better, than he's ever looked before. Like, he looks like 2007 Tom Brady. That's what he looks like right now. And that's not really an exaggeration. It sounds hyperbole, but it's not. He really has been that good this year.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, he came into that system last year and ramped it up. And then on the start of this season, he looks even better. And I mean, like you said, yeah, he looks like he's throwing to Gronk and Aaron Hernandez and Randy Moss and Wes Welker again. And it gives flashbacks. And I think it's just going to, like you said, he's just going to keep rolling. Tom Brady, no matter what situation he's in, plays his game. He doesn't get thrown off. He doesn't, struggle, right? We talked about it in week 1 where the Cowboys go down, they score, and then they pan to Tom Brady on the sidelines with a minute and something seconds left. And it's the killer eyes. Yeah. And that's just how he plays. And it's going to keep going like that until either one, he decides, all right, I've had enough, or his body shuts down. And I don't think his body's going to shut down. I think eventually he's just going to be like, all right, I'm done. I did what I wanted to do. See you guys later. Bye. And I don't know when that's going to be if he keeps playing at this level. It might be, like he said, till he's 50. And who knows? We had the conversation with Brett Favre when Brett Favre said he was going to do it, and we saw the cliff. We're not seeing it. I don't know if we have it all, but it doesn't look like he's anywhere near it. So I think that offense is going to be fine. The defense will probably shore things up. They might have some issues, but I think they just keep rolling.
So that is a great segue to this. I was thinking about the whole Tom Brady thing and how he's just this good at, what is he, 44 now? And seemingly has gotten better, which is the weirdest part, is normally when there's a cliff, you see a little bit signs of it first. It's like when you approach the cliff, you can kind of see it coming a little bit, but it's still kind of hazy, especially if it's like picture this. If it's a cliff with each side and a split down the middle, and you can see the other side, but you can kind of see there's something going on in here. So you get kind of a little bit of warning. With Drew Brees, he fell off the cliff, but for years he couldn't really throw down the field. So, I mean, you could kind of see some signs. I think the
best way is not in the same, obviously they're not in the same category, but the way Big Ben is kind of going at this point, you kind of like, you saw it, and you're like, okay, when are they going to make this decision? They haven't made it, and now the Steelers are, I get it, they beat the Bills in week 1, but Big Ben is,
hasn't looked going good off all season.
Yeah, is going off the deep end at this point. But you're not seeing that, right? Like, it is what it is, man. Like, it's just going to keep rolling until it isn't, and I don't think it's going to be anytime soon.
But anyway, so that brings me to this. I was thinking about it. Is quarterback the only contact sport position where a run like this can occur, where someone plays this old and looks this good at that stage in their career, where it could feasibly happen? So I was thinking about it like this. Even if a player is still good in other sports, LeBron James is a great example of this. He's 36 years old. He's still top 5 player in the league, top 3 player in the league. If you put him any lower than that, then you're just insane. But there's a clear difference in 2012 LeBron James and 2021 LeBron James, where he's not the same player. It's very clear. There's been a slight drop off. And when I say slight, I mean in the slightest bit, but you can see it. There's a visible drop off a little bit. Kobe Bryant was the same way, where for the last couple of years of his career, he was not as effective as he used to be. Even Jerry Rice in football, he was great for years and he was still good at the end, but he wasn't the same player. So is quarterback the only, I call them high contact positions, where someone can look this sharp in year 20 plus? I mean, I'm not counting kickers and punters, because you never hit a kicker or punter ever. And I know quarterbacks are protected, but they're still a contact position. You can still get hit as a quarterback, and get hit pretty good as a quarterback. Is this the only position in sports where this sort of run can happen, where they're this good post year 20?
Probably. I mean, you see it a little bit in hockey. You see like Zayo Charles and Thorntons, and there's a big drop off there. They're still on teams, but they're not key pieces of teams anymore. I think it is just because, like you said, you're not going to count a kicker, you're not going to count a punter. And Tom Brady is a very special case because every time we've seen guys get to this age who are still starting caliber quarterbacks in the NFL, they aren't there anymore. They're guys who are trying to hold on to a legacy that they've created. And you're just kind of like going through the motions and you're like, okay, this guy, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. We don't want to just kick him out, push him down the road and say, hey, sorry, this isn't working anymore. You want that guy to finish with the team that drafted him or finish with the team that he brought to the pinnacle of the NFL. So, but that's not the case with this. He is still pumping, he's still kicking. And I think you're right. It is the only position in a contact or collision sport where you can keep doing what you do at that age for this long.
Let me rephrase the question a little bit, because I think this would be more along the lines of what I'm trying to ask is quarterback the only contact sport position where you can seemingly become better with age? Like I'll put it this way. Last year, we saw a 37-year-old win NFL MVP, Aaron Rodgers, and we saw a 44-year-old Tom Brady, obviously, wins the Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP and look exceptional. Peyton Manning won MVP. The last time he won MVP, he was 38 years old. So there's a history. Drew Brees was in the conversation, probably got the closest he's ever gotten to winning MVP, 3 years before his retirement, 2 years before his retirement. So is quarterback the only position where you seemingly, there's a trend that older quarterbacks are still hyper effective and top of their game in the league? Because like I said, in the grand scheme of things like LeBron James being the exception, he's obviously still incredible, but there's been some downfall. As a quarterback, there have been quarterbacks that have, Ryan Fitzpatrick is a great example of this. He's not at the same level as those guys, but Ryan Fitzpatrick seemingly has become a very serviceable quarterback and borderline starter as he's aged. He's gotten better as he's aged. So is quarterback the only position in contact sports where that can happen?
Yeah. And I think that's a majority because more and more quarterbacks are willing to change their play style, and more coaches are willing to change their play style to fit the quarterback they have. I think this is a big thing. We'll talk about Brett Favre real quick again. Green Bay didn't want to change the way they played because Brett Favre was getting old. It was still, okay, Brett's going to run around a little bit and then huck the ball 60 yards down the field to
across his body.
Drive. Or whatever. And that was kind of the downfall of that. We're seeing more where these older guys can still throw the ball down the field if they need to, but you can also, all these teams are implementing running games, right? Like Leonard Fournette hasn't had an incredible time in Tampa, but he's pretty good. Aaron Jones, like all these guys are getting running games. They're getting, short passing. Like Godwin's making a living down in Tampa catching shorter balls coming across the middle, right? So we're seeing more of these older quarterbacks adapt newer play styles to continue their careers and make them better because they now have multi-layered offenses. It's not this, offenses of 10 years ago where it's, all right, we got this 6'5" guy standing out there by himself on the edge of the field. You're going to bomb it to him 50 yards every 3 plays, right? We don't see that a ton anymore. Obviously, the Chiefs are their own thing. We don't really talk about them in this conversation. But these older quarterbacks are going, okay, I now have, I can still make that 50-yard throw if I need to, but I also can make the 20-yard throw, the 15-yard throw, the 10-yard throw, the 5-yard throw. And I have some guys who can run, catch balls out of the backfield behind me. And I think that's the biggest reason you're seeing these quarterbacks get better with age, because they are willing to accept different offensive styles to continue their career and make them better because they're more threatening, because they have more tools. They have the game knowledge. They have this understanding of the game at this point that these younger guys just don't have. And that's why you're seeing them continue to be great 10, 15, 20 years into their careers.
Right. I think that a big reason that goes into that, and I do believe that quarterback is the only contact sport position. I say contact sport because we've seen things like MLB pitchers look really good in their old age, but they don't get hit, I think it's because quarterback is such a mental game. Like it's all up here. Very little of the quarterback game actually comes from your talent. Now your talent plays a big role, but knowing Drew Brees was a prime example of this. Drew Brees was not some kind of exceptional, can throw the ball 53 yards down the field arm talent at 60 yards down the field. Especially at the end of his career, he couldn't throw the ball 15 yards down the field. But he was so smart and just knew how everything was going to happen, where it was going to go, and he was accurate. He had that talent. But quarterback is such a mental game. If you understand what you're looking at, you become better at it. And that's really the only position I can think of in sports where that's the case. Basketball, a little bit, if you're like the point guard, which LeBron James has kind of morphed into the point guard as his career went on. He's become more of that playmaking role, where it's just understanding what you're looking at and how to dissect it. But quarterback in the biggest way is a mental game. And I think that's why we've seen it with Big Ben and Peyton Manning, and Drew Brees, where they were good, and all of a sudden, they were like we talked about before, where there's that little bit of decline, but not a ton, still kind of keeping it level, and then it's just cliff. And I think that's because it's such a brain game, it's such a mental game. You can still have Peyton Manning still understands the game better than anybody else ever could, and can dissect a defense better than 99.9% of the population of the world could ever do. Once you lose the physical ability to do that, that's when the cliff comes. So Peyton Manning in his last year still understood the game, could still read the game, but did not have the actual ability to do that. And I think that's why we see these cliffs with quarterbacks. And I think Tom Brady is just the prime example of what if the cliff never comes. What if a guy takes care of his body so well that proverbial cliff just never arrives? What if he just stays good? And that's how it's been.
Yeah.
He's just stayed good.
What did he say today? He eats like 50 almonds a day or something.
Like
His
that.
new diet's like almonds, crazy amount of almonds. Yeah, and that's how it is. If it doesn't come, what happens then? We haven't seen it before. We haven't seen someone just walk past the cliff and just keep going. It hasn't happened yet. So
right. We've seen guys leave before the cliff. We've never seen guys just completely not have a cliff. John Elway left before the cliff. He never got the chance to see the cliff. Peyton Manning fell off the cliff. Drew Brees fell off the cliff. What happens if the guy just fall off the cliff, what happens if the cliff just never comes? We haven't seen it. And Tom Brady's the experiment for that. What happens if the cliff just never comes? Okay, that's all I had to say about that. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
No.
Moving on, 4th and goal. Last topic of the day. We got the best and worst of the week. So I'll let you go first. Connor, let's start with... You want to start with the good or the bad?
Let's talk about the bad, because my good is something we've already talked about, because I think it is very important.
Okay, so
the
your
bad
worst
week is famous Jameis is back. He goes out.
That's not fair.
Yes, it is. He goes out, absolutely embarrasses Green Bay, and then comes back, plays Carolina, and goes 11 for 22 for 111 yards and 2 picks.
Was it 2 picks? I thought it was 1 pick.
It was 2 picks.
Okay. Yeah, and that 1 pick he had deep was just the worst throw I've ever seen in my life. That was questionable, to say the least.
So it's just this whole thing of like, we watched week 1 and then we're like, oh my God, Jameis Winston is the answer in New Orleans. Like, he blows the Packers out of the water. This is, wow. This is, holy crap. Like, the Saints made the right decision. They have a guy who can throw the ball. This is awesome. And then they go play Carolina, and he becomes the Jameis Winston of Tampa again. and you just look and go, what happened? Like, what? Why is this? Like, how did you go from crushing the Packers, who have a very good defense with the players they have? That defense is really good. I never thought that the Panthers were going to come out and just absolutely obliterate the Saints. But it's just like, oh, okay, well, here we go. Jameis is back. Jameis is going to be Jameis, and we're back to square one. Maybe he picks it up again, but after this game, it's not. I was not impressed with what happened on Sunday.
So I was gonna say my worst next, but I feel like I have to go with my best because my best is the Carolina Panthers. I think the Carolina Panthers look like a legitimate playoff team this year. And by playoff team, I mean they can make the playoffs. They won't go very far in them, but they will make the playoffs. They've scored 45 total points on the year and only let up 21. So it's a plus 24 point differential. That's only 1 point worse than the Buccaneers, who we just said are unbeatable, unstoppable, could go back to the Super Bowl. The Bucs are plus 25. And by the way, have let up a lot more points than the Carolina Panthers. They have the least amount of points let up by anyone in the league. They did play the Jets week 1, so we have to throw that out there. But they actually let up more points to the New York Jets and Zach Wilson than they did the New Orleans Saints, who are coached by Sean Payton. And Sam Darnold looks pretty good. I've been really impressed by Sam Darnold this season.
And I don't know what happened to the Jets in week 2. So
don't get into that because that's my worst. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves.
So, you're right. The Panthers look really good. Sam Darnold, I think, is where he needs to be. He's in an offense that fits him now, finally. He has who is looking like, I don't think anyone's going to say Christian McCaffrey's in the top 2 running back in the NFL, whichever spot you put him in.
Right.
That receiving core is getting really, really, really good. And Sam Darnold just looks like how I think everyone wanted him to look with the Jets. He's making the throws. He's not making bad decisions. He's making the right reads now. And the defense, they had J.C. Horn and a couple other guys, and they look really, really good. Yeah.
Brian Burns off the end is so good.
So it's kind of like, they are doing incredibly, but also like the Saints, you can't have that happen. You can't be completely shut down after throwing up that many points against the Packers in week 1.
Right.
But anyway, that's
Yeah, I think Darnold falls in that category that I was talking about earlier with the Bakers, the Derek Carrs, of just the quarterback that he's not going to do anything that's going to blow your mind. You're not, he might have a great play every once in a while, but Sam Darnold isn't going to consistently show you incredible, but he's going to show you very good. He can be a very good quarterback. If he keeps up this pace. And that's really all the Panthers need because their defense is good. And as long as their offense puts 20 to 27 points on the board, they'll be in a lot of games, if not winning a lot of games. So I think what we'll do is I'll do my worst next so we can end on a good note. My worst of the week, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, was Zach Wilson, who has been so bad to start his career. You said it last week that he would not be a good quarterback in the NFL. And I wasn't super down on him after last week like you were. But this week, let's just say I am. So thus far, he's 55% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. And you don't really want to count him out because he's 2 games into his NFL career. So it's unfair. But there were some throws, especially his 3rd interception against the Patriots, where you just watched that throw and you were like, what did you see there? Like, what were you looking at? Defender was there the whole time. At no point was his receiver ever open. The defender could have left the stadium, come back, went and gotten food, come back, and still covered the receiver because that's how not open he was. And you throw it there. And I mean, the Pats do this to everyone, so it could be an overreaction, but Zach Wilson has not looked good. And that begs the question of the second guy off the board, how he's fared. So basically, I went back and looked at since 1998, which was the Peyton Manning Ryan Leaf draft. Basically, times where quarterbacks were consensus 1-2 and were taken 1-2 in the draft. And here's how it goes. So obviously, 98, Peyton Manning is taken first. Becomes Peyton Manning, in case you haven't heard of him. Ryan Leaf becomes Ryan Leaf, in case you haven't heard of him. Not very good in the league. 1999, Tim Couch is taken first overall. Not a great quarterback by any means. And Donovan McNabb is taken second overall. Pretty good quarterback in the league. Not necessarily a Hall of Famer, but a very good quarterback. McNabb was kind of the Patrick Mahomes before Patrick Mahomes, not on the same level, you know. Then in 2012, Andrew Luck is taken first overall. Obviously, he retires early, but no one's going to question that Andrew Luck was an incredible quarterback. He left the league for 2 years, came back, and won comeback player of the year and brought the Colts to, 11, 12 wins. He was obviously an incredible quarterback. Number 2 is Robert Griffin III, who had a great rookie year, won Rookie of the Year. Hasn't really done a whole lot since, and has been kind of skipping around on teams. He was on the Ravens last year. I don't know where he is now. I don't know if he's still on the Ravens.
He is begging the football team to sign him as their starting quarterback. Right. He's making social posts to try and get signed as the starter in Washington. So that tells you how that's gone.
Yeah, it does. 2015, Jameis Winston is taken first overall. And say what you want about Jameis Winston, he has not by any means been an incredible quarterback, but he's still a starter on a team in the NFL. And maybe not the worst starter on a team in the NFL. And Marcus Mariota is taken second overall, and he is a backup for the Raiders, and no team in the NFL would ever put him as starter, except for the Raiders, because John Gruden perennially wants to bench Derek Carr. And then in 2016, Jared Goff was taken first overall, and Carson Wentz is taken second, and neither of those guys have had incredible careers, but Jared Goff's been to a Super Bowl,
Carson Wentz just sprained both of his ankles.
At least. So, and then obviously this past year, Trevor Lawrence taken 1-1. I know he hasn't had the best start to the year, but I don't think anyone thinks that Trevor Lawrence is going to not be good.
The Jets.
Yeah. So. And Zach Wilson is taken 2 and has looked absolutely terrible. So, I mean, just long story short, in a extrapolation of this number 2 overall, the guy taken second, Zach Wilson is looking like he falls right in line with the rest of them. Like, obviously, I had some stretches in there, Goff and Wentz. Neither of them has really been great. But, the Manning Leaf comparison, the Luck Robert Griffin comparison, even the Jameis Winston Marcus Mariota comparison, not that far off. Like, he does not look good at all.
Yeah. And I know people say, oh, he's a rookie, that, this, that, and the other thing. Most of those throws he made this last Sunday were just bad in general. Not that like, oh, he can build his vision of the field later on, or like he'll be able to read coverages. They were just horrible throws.
Like just bad.
And
bad.
They were just bad throws. And that's not something you can really, it's something you can teach to an extent, but that's one of those things where a quarterback just has to have. Like, you have to be able to see the field. You have to be able to see coverages. You have to be able to know when your guy's going to get open and how they're going to get open. And from that game, and given that Patriots secondary is nothing to, talk down upon.
Right. Even the Patriots do this to all young quarterbacks.
Right. So. They just make all young quarterbacks look bad. But when you look that bad, like, everyone's making the joke about Sam Darnold, right? Like, oh, he was seeing ghosts. Like,
and everybody
Zach
after
Wilson
Sam Darnold had that, they were all over him.
Yeah.
They said he's so bad. Like, it's only fair to say that about Zach Wilson.
Exactly. But Zach Wilson looks worse than Sam Darnold did. Like,
Sam Darnold at least showed flashes every once in a while where you were like, okay, there's something there.
Solid. And Zach Wilson was another one of those guys that didn't play in a great conference in college. Everyone hyped him up. And then all of a sudden he comes to the NFL and like you're like, what happened? Right? Like I get it, the ACC isn't great, but Trevor Lawrence ran camp run amok down there. Mac Jones comes out of the SEC, perennially the greatest, conference in college football, right? Like even, Trey Lance and Justin Fields come out of the Big Ten, arguably one of the hardest defensive conferences to play out of. Wilson played at BYU, right? Like, how many players can you name from BYU in the NFL? And you can't say Taysom. There's two other guys that I can name. I think there's a few offensive linemen. The only two other guys I know in the NFL from BYU are Taysom Hill and Sorensen.
Oh, that's right. Sorensen is from BYU. That's right.
So that's the kind of thing. Like you play at BYU, you play not great teams, and then people like they hype it up, and then you're like, well, you have to think about. I get it. It's a totally different game. I mean, Urban Meyer even said it. He said, who did he tell that to? He was like, oh, playing in the NFL is like playing Alabama every week.
Every week, yeah. He said. I forget who he said it to, but
and so it's this thing where it's like, okay, there's looking bad because you play for the Jets, and then there's looking bad because you're not good.
Yeah.
If Zach Wilson doesn't turn around soon, he's just going to be bad because he's bad, not bad because he plays for the Jets.
He's got to show some kind of flashes, and you brought it up, and it's a really important point, is that Trevor Lawrence is going to get the benefit of the doubt because he played for Clemson, played real meaningful games against Alabama. So playing Alabama every week isn't really something to him because he's played them before. Justin Fields is going to get the benefit of the doubt. Played in a great conference, played really tough opponents. Say what you want about Michigan, Wisconsin. They're legit football schools, Mac Jones played at Alabama. You can see all the competition he's been in. I know Alabama rules the SEC, but the SEC's got some real teams in it. It's the Trey Lance, it's the Zach Wilsons. They're not going to get the benefit of the doubt. It's going to be you have to show something early. Because those other guys, we've seen them play tough competition. We've seen them do it, and we've seen them succeed in it. These two guys we haven't. Trey Lance hasn't seen the field yet. Probably a smart move on Kyle Shanahan's part. And Zach Wilson has not looked good. And granted, like you said, he does play for the Jets. And you're going to look bad playing quarterback just by proxy of playing for the Jets. It's going to happen. But you need to show something. You need to show something. Go ahead, Connor. You're best. Let's end on a good note.
I know we talked about a ton this episode, but Lamar beating the Chiefs is huge. I think a lot of people think it's just like, oh, he finally got a win. Being down 0-3 in your career to a team, especially a team as good as the Chiefs, and coming out with a statement win like they did, I get it, it's week 2 in the NFL, is huge, no matter what team you are. But the Ravens doing it, especially getting a win in front of that home crowd in Baltimore and showing the confidence they had in all three aspects, special teams, offense, and defense against the Chiefs, I think is the biggest thing of week 2. And them being able to do that, taking that away, taking it into week 3 and even further into the season, knowing like, hey guys, we are going to see them again late in the season. We know we can beat them because we did. Not this, oh, we got close anymore. It's we beat them. We did it at home. We have the recipe to do it again is the biggest thing out of week 2.
Yeah, I mean, we've already talked about it at length, but it was a huge, huge win. Like you said, super important to have that win. Going into playoffs, Chiefs are the best team the Ravens are going to face. Not even close, in the AFC. So in order to be able to take that win, and a win where you won from behind, something that everybody said the Ravens cannot do with Lamar Jackson, you won from behind against the Kansas City Chiefs, which are the worst team in the NFL to fall behind on. To do that, massive for the confidence of the Ravens, that whole organization, and Lamar Jackson in particular going forward. And I really am hoping for the big playoff win by Lamar this year. I want to see it happen because he has to take that step. He has to take that next step. But yeah, huge. That was a good one to end on. So that was the last down. You punched it in. You got to either, so Connor's going to choose here to either kick the extra point, which was a prediction, which I had to go back to last week's episode because I forgot what your prediction was. But I'm sorry, buddy. You have now started the season 0-2 on predictions in 0-2.
Oh, I lost again.
Yeah, and 0-2 in going for 2. So basically, his prediction last week was that the Rams would keep rolling, which they won. But then I forced it out of you because I was kind of a cop-out. I forced you to say how much they would win by, and that would be your prediction. They had to win by 13 or more.
Barely beat the Colts.
They won by 3. Yeah, so really tough. I don't know why you set the bar so high. I think I said on last episode I would have put it at like 6, But so he's going to choose here to either kick the extra point, which is he'll give another prediction and hopefully get something right eventually, or he'll choose to go for 2, in which he has to answer a trivia question that I have prepared here for him. So
let's go trivia. I don't think I'm going to get any of these right.
This is good.
We're going to have to go for 2.
I think you can get this one. All right. So your trivia question. I talked about it before, where the Panthers have a plus 24 point differential. They're up there in point differential in the league. But there are 2 divisions in football that have every team in them with a positive point differential. So in other words, their points for, if you subtract their points against from their points for, they end up with a positive number. There are 2 divisions in football where every team in that division has a positive point differential. What are those 2 divisions?
The NFC West.
That is one.
And
you're halfway there.
The NFC East?
I'm sorry, but that second one is wrong. So, the answer to the question is the NFC West and the AFC West. Both have positive point differentials. And you know what's even more surprising about that? You know who the 2 lowest point differentials are across all 8 teams in those 2 divisions? The Chargers at +1 and the Chiefs at +3.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 lowest ones. And then the Seahawks are +9. But I think it's something crazy. Let's see if I can grab my phone real quick. Great podcasting moment to not be prepared for this. But the Chiefs are +3. The Chargers are +1. The Seahawks are +9. And then I believe everyone else is like +20 or higher. The Broncos are +24. Who knew? The Raiders are +15. And then the Niners are +14, the Cardinals are +26, and the Rams are +23. So, naturally, the Broncos have a better point differential than the freaking Los Angeles Rams. So, you go 0-3 on trivia.
Surprise, surprise.
But for the sake of you gotta get a win on the board, I'll allow you to put a prediction anyways. And if you get it right, here, tell you what, if you get it right, it'll count towards your record for predictions. If you don't get it right, we just will pretend like it never even happened. I'll offer this one time and one time only. This is your one chance. If you lose this, then you don't get any more like freebies to try and get a point.
I feel like if I get this one wrong, I should just give up. I mean, it's kind of not great at this point. Prediction for next week. Let me look at the schedule for next week really quick and kind of figure out where I want to go with this, because there are big games.
Packers versus Niners on Sunday Night Football. Rams versus Bucks is the afternoon game. Let's see. We have Browns Bears, Justin Fields first start. Chargers Chiefs, Saints Patriots.
Oh, I hope I get that game. because I'll be very excited. Well, I won't even be able to watch it because I'll be working. So it's not like it really matters anyway. You're not going to like this one.
You're going to do something about the Cowboys Eagles.
The Eagles beat the Cowboys on Monday Night Football.
Okay. Well, I regret giving you that opportunity. So, Connor's prediction, Eagles will beat the Cowboys. I won't make you do a point differential on that because, like, last week it was like, if the Rams don't beat the Colts, what the hell's going on? But this one should be a close game. So, and right now the Cowboys are favorites. So just the fact that you chose the Eagles to win, I won't make you say by how much. All right. So that's Connor's prediction. The Eagles will beat the Cowboys. If that happens, I'm probably not going to be on the next episode because I will have shot myself. All right. That's the show. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you enjoyed, make sure to drop a like, subscribe. Go watch the first half. If you're watching the second half right now, go back and watch the first video of the first half of the episode. We had a little bit of technical difficulties with it, but we got through. We powered through. Second half of the episode went perfectly fine. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you guys next week.
Temptation when you get the vibration. Won't do no